because I had the mic muted, but now you can hear me. Hello, everyone. This is Andres Restart. Hopefully, you can actually hear me now. Is it on? I think it's on. I think it's on. We're on. We're live. To answer a few questions about what we're doing today. Yeah, just like a Q&A, just kind of chilling on stream for a little bit. I know I haven't done a live stream in a little bit, which they're just kind of been more rare lately. But we're going to just talk about how, like, it seems like the Zelda 40th anniversary is probably happening, and it's probably going to be, like, you know, happening in some kind of Nintendo Direct presentation. Like, that's what we're going to be talking about here. No, I don't know for a fact that the Zelda 40th anniversary Nintendo Direct is going to happen exactly in that way, but it's just looks really likely. Like very, very likely. For a variety of reasons. So that's what we're going to talk about. Like, there's been different videos we made about different little things that have popped up. Like, a lot of things that Universal Nintendo has apparently heard of, like a switch to Zelda-themed Pro Controller, and also a Zelda 40th anniversary logo. Like, Necrofelipe has claimed he's actually seen these. Like, he has actually seen imagery for this stuff, or approximations of it. And so there's that. But then we have Nintendo, who has corroborated the Zelda 40th anniversary stuff. I believe there are others, but those are the two that come to mind for this. However, we also talk about what Special Nick has heard, and he's heard about there being a Zelda-themed Switch 2 console and a Pro Controller coming for the 40th anniversary. And of course, Nintendo themselves has already told us about Ocarina of Time. We know it's coming out at some point this year. You look at what's already been announced, it seems likely that Ocarina of Time is coming out after Switch Sports Resort, which is coming out in the second to last week of October. So really, it's when you kind of consider things, it seems like November is very likely. Then we have this recent Amiibo leak, which seems to point to some kind of game coming out November 12th. There's a correlation with Amiibos coming out and Nintendo putting out games during that time, because when the game comes out, people go to the stores, and if there's also amiibos to sell, Nintendo can sell those amiibo. And so it seems like if the game comes out November 12th, people are thinking that might be literally for Ocarina of Time. We'll see. Regardless, we have Ocarina of Time coming out this year. It is Zelda's 40th anniversary. Nintendo officially celebrated the 35th anniversary, the 30th, and the 25th. They've been doing that for Mario as well. We have a live-action movie coming out late April, and clearly they're going to start advertising that. And you just consider the success Nintendo has had with the Mario celebrations and the history of Zelda celebrations and everything we see lining up here and everything we're hearing from these different insiders and their track histories. It's pretty obvious something's cooking. Like, it's pretty obvious. Like, even if you didn't believe any of the leaks or rumors, like, just the history of things would tell you something is going to be happening for Zelda's 40th anniversary. We already know about the Ocarina of Time remake. But it's very cool when we're hearing that there's a logo for the 40th anniversary, when we're hearing there's a Pro Controller, and that there's going to be a console, and that there might be more. Recently, we got an interview from Shigeru Miyamoto, where he confirmed that both Star Fox and Yoshi the Mysterious Book were actually put into development because of the Mario Galaxy movie. And that's a really big deal, because that just really puts a huge exclamation point on the whole idea that we talk a lot about on this channel, the cross-promotional strategies by Nintendo, how they literally make sure to have games to align with the movie, right? And so when we have the live-action Zelda movie, and now we know about the Ocarina of Time remake, I think there's probably going to be more, actually. What is that more? There's been the talks of Twilight Princess something. Grezzo could perhaps be trying to ready another 2D Zelda, which they're having a variety of rumors for. I'm not saying the 2D Zelda would come out this year. Keep in mind, like the Star Fox thing, that came out after the Mario Galaxy movie, right? I would assume this 2D Zelda thing, if it is happening, which it's pretty obvious to think that there will be another new 2D Zelda. The question is when, not if. But to have it come out a few months after the live-action Zelda movie, which would be seeing promotion over, like, you know, a 6-month span starting not too long from now, where they'd be celebrating Zelda's 40th anniversary, talking about the movie and the Ocarina of Time remake, that makes sense. Well, there'll still be kind of like a lot of Zelda hype, perhaps other things going on. Very similar to how Nintendo handled Mario's 40th anniversary, how there was a variety of things that were announced September of last year in a Nintendo Direct, half of the presentation was centered around Mario's 40th anniversary. It had its own logo. There were their own special releases and bundles. There were different games that were announced. The Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 remasters, the Mario Tennis thing, Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, later Star Fox, and obviously the Mario Galaxy movie. Nintendo may do something very similar this time around, but for Zelda. Another cool thing, it might be about time for Nintendo to announce the next expansion to Super Nintendo World. The Donkey Kong expansion has been out for a little bit of a while already. They haven't announced the next one yet. But with the movie coming out, with us already seeing the Zelda series producer, Eiji Aonuma, was literally at Super Nintendo World, like, looking at, like, blueprint plans and construction plans. The evidence is there, right? Like, it to me is pretty clear. I've been to Super Nintendo World. There's and, like, you look at, like, the merchandise store. It's Mario stuff, obviously. It's the Mushroom Kingdom, but then it's also Donkey Kong stuff. They have the Donkey Kong expansion, but then it's also Zelda stuff. That's what they have. So, like, they've already kind of, like, pre-prepped the store for what I believe to be the first 3 installments of Super Nintendo World. We have the first 2, Mario and Donkey Kong. The next one, given with the movie and all the other stuff and the anniversary, to me, and just, like, the history of Zelda and how big of a deal it is, yeah, I think Zelda is that next thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is announced as well as part of 40th anniversary plans. So there's just, like, a lot of things that seem to be kind of coming together here. I feel pretty good about it, and I kind of just want to talk more about it with you guys. But I've opened things up with this little summary, and now I'll just kind of come to the chat, see how you guys are doing, and we'll just dive into it all. So let me know how everything looks and sounds, by the way. Hopefully you guys could actually hear me. I assumed you guys could hear me, so yeah. James Turncliffe 5960. Hopefully the rumors of Zelda Switch 2 are false. It's a pain in the arse to sell a Switch 2, and they are $800 plus in Canada. I would buy a new Zelda themed Pro controller. Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a Zelda themed console. Like, I just believe that. I mean, Nintendo put out a Zelda themed OLED and Pro controller for when Tears of the Kingdom came out. This Ocarina of Time remake is going to be a big deal. Like, think about this. There's usually some kind of bundle every year, and the big thing this year is Ocarina of Time. Like, it just kind of, believe the rumors release or not, like, it just kind of makes sense to think that's what they're going to probably do. So I would expect that to happen. RNL. Hi, everyone. I'm here. It's Raven, the owner of RNL. I'm ready for this 40th anniversary news. Yeah. I think it's coming. Zeno Hope. Dang, I'll be busy. I think I saw you in the chat, though, so I'm glad you're still here for a little bit. Kristen King has become a member. Glad to have you. In fact, let me point it out here. There we go. Having Hope, or now Zeno Hope. I've been enjoying Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Switch 2 Edition. I recently just downloaded it. I talked a little bit about it today. It looks so good. It's so crisp. It's so clean. I love Xenoblade 2. Very good time. But thank you, Xeno Hope, for being a member all this time. And Chrono Rig with a super chat. First super chat of the evening. My theory is we'll get a direct before the Switch 2 price increase to give people more reasons to buy. What 3 songs have to be in the Zelda movie? Okay, so this is two-pronged. I think you bring up a really good point, because we know the price of Switch 2 is going up in September. Making announcements beforehand, it does make a lot of sense. We're now entering we are in August. So, right? Yeah, this is August. We're in August. So, yeah, next month, this is happening, right? So, like, we're not far off now, folks. Even if there's not a big direct in August, and apparently there's some whispers, but we're not focusing on that for now. Probably a direct in September, as there usually is, if not this month somehow. It does make sense. What 3 songs have to be in the Zelda movie, though? Zelda's Lullaby is the first that comes to mind. Zelda's Lullaby has got to be there. I also believe there will be a version of the Kokiri theme, because we already know Kokiri are going to be in the movie, but we've seen them from the set leaks. So the Kokiri Forest theme, Zelda's Lullaby, because that's like the most important one for the princess and all that, the royal family, like that's an obvious one, and I guess like the Hyrule Field theme, or like that core Zelda theme. Like those all to me are givens, all of them. Yeah. Where's my chat? Can't find it. There we go. I have found chat. I can read more of the chats because I have found chat. Here we go. Christopher Colazzo. Hey y'all. Hey y'all, how's it going? So ready for Zelda 40th Direct, right? It's there's gonna be something. MT MTS Tex. What's up, Andres? Longtime subscriber at First Live. Glad to be here. Glad to have you here. Emperor Darth OP at me. Greetings. How are you doing? I'm actually doing pretty good. Yeah, I've been doing pretty good lately. I've been a little bit busy, but yeah, it's been a good time. It's been a good time. Fiblian, when is the direct rumored? There's different things. Ian Holt, do you think it'll be August 4th? So, if there's something happening soon, I think we'll hear an announcement tomorrow. I'm not saying that's what's happening for the record. We talked about it like a couple weeks ago. There was like that GameStop thing where if you like search for Ocarina of Time, it had it listed for pre-orders opening on August 4th, but there's been no one to really verify this information. They took it down. It may have been just been a mistake of some kind. Some people were claiming that like there was some sort of AI weird confusion there, but there was different listings that showed different things. Like people were saying it was just like people who didn't read like the Beast of Reincarnation listing, which that was what some people were sharing. But either way, like it's a GameStop error, so we'll see what happens with it. Ephraim Carrillo, do you think the dude talking in the beginning with the tapestry is the king of Hyrule telling the tale of a young Zelda? How does she know about the boy without a fairy? How does he know about the boy without, or how does she know like Princess Zelda? Like maybe because like a prophecy or something. I mean, she also had a vision or like a dream in Ocarina of Time. Uh, my initial theory for who's the narrator is Rauru, because they're talking about things as if it's a long time ago, like well into the past. I mean, it could possibly be the king. The thing though is that maybe it's no one that's known from Ocarina of Time because it's talking about this happening long ago. It could be just like this is just the narrator's voice, like it's a new character, the new character being the narrator and nothing more. Um, that's a possibility. And just kind of like they're saying long ago, like there's just like Ocarina of Time, it's a legend, right? But if it's anyone in the game, I think it would be Rauru actually, just because Rauru is the Sage of Light who is in the Chamber of Sages that you access to the Temple of Time. And in there, Link has his 7-year slumber, and also Rauru doesn't seemingly can't actually leave the Chamber of Sages. He uses the owl Kapor Gabora as a proxy, supposedly. It's basically confirmed, but not like 100% confirmed. To like explore the world and guide Link. I think there is a little bit of an implication there that like inside that Chamber of Sages, like the construct of time is a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't call it a construct, but the flow of time functions differently in there, and you could even perhaps even like you. There's an argument to be made that Ra was actually been around for generations, like more than the span of a typical lifespan of one human or Hylian. And so if that's the case, it could go both ways, not just from the past, but Raru's existence could extend into the future as well. And if that is the case, then he could tell the legend of the hero of time. So that's kind of like my theory on it, but we'll find out. Captain Doge One, what's up, Andres? It's been a while since I've caught a stream. I haven't done a live stream in a while, so, but I'm glad to have you here. Steve West 6846. Why are people calling the new game Reborn? Did the title leak? So, the title of the game is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Officially, that is the name. There is no additional subtitle to it. That is the name. That is what Nintendo has already officially announced. And the thing is, if you take a look at how Nintendo handles the branding, the logos, the titles for their remakes, their actual remakes, not remasters. I know a lot of people get those confused. Their remakes don't contain anything like remastered, deluxe, definitive edition, anything of that sort. What they have is literally just the name. Several examples come to mind. One of the most recent ones, Star Fox. Notice how they just call it Star Fox, even though it's a remake of Star Fox 64. They just called it Star Fox. Another example, Super Mario RPG. There was a full-on remake. They just call it Super Mario RPG. Another example, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. It was a remake. What did they just call it? Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. There's no extra titling there. And so this is how another one, a Zelda one. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening was a full-on remake. There's no extra titling there. Like, all these games are re-releases, but they're reworkings, right? Actually ambitious reworkings, because they've all been made ground up new, totally new. Now, all of these games aren't as ambitious as what they're doing with Ocarina of Time, but my point is here, with the title, that is what it is suggestive of. It is Nintendo's reworking, full-on remake, or perhaps in some cases a little bit of a reimagining of that title for this era, for this generation. In terms of where the word reborn comes from, when Nintendo introduced Ocarina of Time in the June Nintendo Direct, Koizumi, if I'm not mistaken, it was Koizumi that was on stage, said this game was being reborn for Nintendo Switch 2. If you go to the website of the Ocarina of Time listing, it is described as being reborn for Nintendo Switch 2. Within the metadata as well. They had also mentioned in the metadata as a full remake. They took that part down. On Twitter, it was mentioned as that's being reborn for Nintendo Switch 2. So on social media, on the Direct website, and the Nintendo Direct, and also there's a recent magazine where there's a little bit of a marketing for Ocarina of Time on Switch 2, and they say and they have a slogan for the game: "Reborn across time." So across the board, in various ways, Nintendo would go about their messaging for this game. They use the wording "being reborn for Nintendo Switch 2." They're not talking about this being remastered, redone. They're talking about it being reborn. They haven't given us much of a description, right? The only thing where we got a description officially is the full remake thing I just mentioned, but that was taken down. And what's also interesting about that is that Nintendo doesn't really use the term full remake to describe their projects, because the thing is, when you consider the modern era that is now, there's a lot of ambitious remakes out there. You look at the Final Fantasy remake trilogy, you look at the Resident Evil remakes. To call something a full remake with things like this around, you better mean business, right? Now, again, Nintendo took that down. So, maybe they don't want to hold themselves to that. Regardless, though, when you consider the wording reborn, there is an implication there, in my mind, very strongly so, that this is a big deal. So, to answer your question, that's where the whole reborn conversation comes from. Efrain Garillo, dude, the fishing game is going to be legit. That is a huge opportunity to really expand on that. Ammon Cooper, I would love for Nintendo to announce something for the original Zelda game. I'd be down for them to eventually remake Zelda 1. I know Breath of the Wild, in a way, is kind of like that, like it's a spiritual successor, but there's also a lot of things about it that are completely different. Like, I think it'd be cool if they actually were to go back and remake Zelda 1 as a 2D game would be cool, or based off like that Breath of the Wild prototype that was in 2D would be cool, or a 3D game, which would be basically a reimagining, right? Like that, all those would be cool options. But yeah, if they were to revisit Zelda 1 at some point, like truly, I'd be up for that. Legend of Lex, now modding. Glad to have you modding for me. Yes, fishing is fun. And I do hope they do something special for fishing in this remake, which I feel like they probably will. Captain Doge, yes, I think I brought up earlier theme park expansion. Yeah, I think the Zelda, we're gonna see Zelda announced for Super Nintendo World soon. Xeno Hope, I'm just a happy Nintendo girl. Zelda and Xenoblade. Yep, it's a perfect 1-2 punch. Jeff Moore, I think if Nintendo's going to be at Gamescom, they will either give Jeff Keighley an Ocarina of Time trailer for the opening night, or they have some sort of Zelda Direct this month before Gamescom. Let me reread that. My brain. It was. There was nothing about wrong with what you said. It's something wrong with my brain sometimes, and just not always paying attention. Um, you think if this was going to be at Gamescom, they will either give Jeff Keighley an Ocarina of Time trailer for opening night, or they'll have some sort of Zelda Direct this month before Gamescom. I don't think Nintendo's going to do the trailer specifically for Gamescom. I think they would handle it on their own, to be honest. But could it be shown around that time? I hope so. I feel like they got to do things sooner than later. I think waiting until September would be a bit much, especially if they have all these other Zelda 40th anniversary plans. But we'll see, because it kind of depends on what Nintendo does. Like, let's say they did a direct for everything else, and then it's only Zelda stuff afterwards. Then sure, right? But it's hard for me to believe they would do that, unless maybe the plan is to not have another general direct this year, which might be kind of shocking to think that they wouldn't do another general direct. But think about this for a moment. They could do a Fire Emblem direct for Fire Emblem. They could do a Switch Sports direct or a Switch Sports overview or something for that. That might not need a direct per se. Um, they could do that stuff. The Dustbloods might not even come out this year. We'll see. We're getting the network test. I think if we go by the timing between the network test for Night Rain and when it came out, things are aligned for a December release here. We'll see if that holds. That's something else to consider. But like, Nintendo could have like independent presentations for these, have a partner showcase. Actually, the Dustbloods could be in the partner showcase, could be like the biggest game in the partner showcase. So it's still part of a Nintendo Direct. And then they just have one more major game, which would be Ocarina of Time, and they could have the Zelda 40th Anniversary Direct where they talk about all that stuff, and then after that, they then push everything else. Like, they could do something like that. So there could be a Nintendo Direct partner showcase in August. They have a separate presentation this month in August for Fire Emblem. Then in September, they have some sort of Switch Sports marketing presentation and the Zelda 40th Anniversary Direct. And that would cover what they need. I have been speculating there's a little bit more for Nintendo to announce for the second half of the year. There's a few different options there, but it could be some smaller things. Like we've speculated about it, like a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition, or the Metroid, a Super Metroid remake, but in a pixel-based style, which would, be a little bit more of a smaller scale project, but still something Nintendo could announce. It could be a cool shadow drop, wouldn't necessarily need a whole direct for. And so those things in conjunction with the things that are already slated, that might be enough to close out the year. And so anyway, just bring up like this pathway as a possibility for how they go about doing things, just to highlight that there's different ways they could go about doing things. I just kind of think it through. Like, I think it would be weird if Nintendo does not talk about Ocarina of Time at all this month, waits until midway through September, has a giant Nintendo Direct, and in there, it's everything else that they would talk about in a Nintendo Direct, like the non-Zelda stuff. They have the Zelda stuff, where they give us a Zelda movie trailer, they announce the park, they give us all the merchandising stuff, the concert announcements. Like, they do all the 40th anniversary announcements, probably maybe even another game or two of some kind coming out within the next 6 months, like maybe another spin-off, maybe a 2D Zelda. Like, what if they go that far? I think they might hold off on some stuff. Like I mentioned earlier, like they didn't announce Star Fox until after the Mario Galaxy movie, even though it was planned as part of the 40th anniversary. They could hold on the 2D Zelda announcement until later. But still, all that stuff, and then you finally give us a proper look at the Ocarina of Time remake that feels like a lot to do in one presentation, which is why I'm kind of thinking things need to be spread out a little bit. Like, either A, you show off Ocarina of Time first and then do it again with the 40th anniversary stuff, or we push something back. Like maybe we don't get like the first movie trailer in this 40th anniversary presentation. That comes a little bit later. They just say, hey, like we're gonna make an announcement soon. Here's another actor. This is gonna be Ganondorf or something. Like if they do something smaller, that's a possibility. I just think that shoving all the big 40th anniversary announcements in one place with all the other Nintendo Direct stuff as one part of presentation, with us not having seen much about Ocarina of Time, where that would take the spotlight across everything else, that seems like something Nintendo that might not want to do. So that's why I'm like considering maybe there's other ways to go about doing things, and it also gives me some hope that maybe they would show Ocarina of Time sooner. Um, but there's just a lot of different ways Nintendo can go about doing this, and there is a rumor that we will have to wait until September for the Ocarina of Time remake to be shown off again, which, you know, might just be a safe bet for some people considering the history of Directs in September and that we're already in August. But we'll see. Let's see. Hmm. Legend of Lex. I'm also very excited for the music. Actually, I Frank Carrillo. I'm most looking forward to the music and the battle with Shadow Link. The battle with Shadow Link is gonna be crazy. Xeno Hope, yes, me too. The gameplay, the music, pretty much everything. The music is gonna be interesting because like we heard like the beginning of the teaser, and that's like like that's just cool what they did with the Kokiri theme. Like they are clearly going next level with this. And Zelda, like, you know, all the Zelda scores are incredible, or many of them are. I imagine they're gonna have full. It's all gonna be fully orchestrated. They did that for even Star Fox. They've been doing full orchestrations for a while for Zelda, so to see that for Ocarina of Time is gonna be really special. And I imagine there's gonna be a lot of remixes, as we heard from the teaser. Maybe like a little bit of some new elements to them, expanding upon them. Like I think about all the songs for the different dungeons, like the Bolero Fire and things like that. Like they're kind of short, you know. But imagine they're expanded on to be full songs. I'm excited for that. I'm very excited for that because those songs are cool. They're just short. So I would love to see all these songs really expanded upon, fleshed out. Um, yeah, it's gonna be exciting to hear. Boomini, what does Ruby think about all this? Ruby is just chilling outside in the terrace. I was looking to see if I could see her hanging out. Um, yeah. Oh, the chat jumped. I'm now lost. I'm lost. I can't find where I was. Alright, I think I found it. Ruby thinks that that she would be a better Epona, but she's a little tiny, so I'm not sure. She's not quite horse size yet. Xeno, can we see Ruby? Possibly. This is what I'll do. I'm gonna open this door that's like behind this, and if she comes in within the next 30, 45 minutes, however long I'm doing this live stream for, then I'll show her. Snake Snack, I see you don't feel well. I hope you feel better, but hopefully you can at least enjoy the stream and get well soon. Hmm. Captain Doge, not even mute the whole time, and you guys are still watching. Thank you, thank you. I feel like I'm pretty behind in the chat as I'm looking through here. Let's see. Alright, I've seen the questions, but they're kind of similar questions I already answered. Like the dude I think in the teaser trailer is maybe Rauru or just a random person for the narrator. The king is an interesting idea though. Frank Garillo, if you're asking me this, we'll see. How do you approach getting your info? It's an interesting question. So I mean, if we're just talking about like public stuff, I research it. um, So like, it just depends. Like I think the thing is I am very into Nintendo, so I've kind of always paid attention to Nintendo news and history and facts for years. But I also fact check myself a lot too, right? So I mean, you probably even see in the light, like, I'll bring up dates for different things, and then if I'm like not sure, I double check. I feel like more often than not, I remember correctly, but I still don't have like the confidence. So like I always double check, triple check stuff like that. Um, I read interviews. When there's an interview, I read it. I keep track of them. I go back to that stuff. Whenever I have a video idea, I try and consider stuff, and I research different things. I read through those different things. I'm also on Twitter a lot, and I follow different news sources. I try to keep up with that kind of stuff. I've read some books about Nintendo history too, so there's that. But I guess, I just stay interested, and I check my sources for things, and I read through things. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes sometimes, because I do, but yeah, I just stay interested in the information and try to dig deeper. That's the public stuff. The private stuff, which is very, 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 very rare, and I usually don't even share it. It's just people trust me sometimes. But again, there's not really much private stuff, so yeah, it's mostly public stuff. Double D. I haven't bought Splatoon Raiders yet. I've been busy, but I want to pick it up soon. I've heard it's really good, and I'm excited about it. Emperor Darth OP asks me, some things I wish for the Ocarina of Time Reborn game is to have 4 new adult dungeons: the Light Temple, the Ice Temple, the Wind Temple, and the Ground Temple. So 9 medallions instead of 6. Right, because the Light Temple, we already get the medallions for it. Interesting. 9 medallions, but there's still the 3 other dungeons. It's interesting. In the Wind Waker, they have an Earth and Wind Temple, right? And there is no Earth and Wind Temple in Ocarina of Time. But what's interesting is that the islands in the Wind Waker, they're actually it's talked about how they are just the peaks of the mountains from Hyrule, right? So like the waters are so high, but the tips of these islands are just the tips of mountains. And so like if we're accessing the Earth and Wind Temple at the tips of some of these at these islands, which would then be the tips of mountains for the mountains in Ocarina of Time, right? That's the implication there. Then that would then suggest that lore-wise, the Earth and Wind Temples should exist, in that land. Now, I guess the thing is, were the Earth and Wind Temples built after the events of Ocarina of Time before the Great Flood? There's a little bit of a window of time there. Oh, something loud outside. I really hate that person with their vehicle that disturbs my peace. I don't even know if you guys heard it. It just bothered me. So I had my sliding door open, which increased the amount of noise we could hear. Anyway, yeah, so it's interesting for me to kind of think about that, because, like, theoretically, based off what's suggested in the events of the Wind Waker, there should also be an Earth and Wind Temple to be found in Ocarina of Time. Like, they could pull something out of their hat like that if they really wanted to. That would be fun. That would be so fun. And then, yeah, I do understand that there were a couple cut dungeons that were initially planned in Ocarina of Time. Like, I think there was going to be an ice temple, and they changed it to a water temple. We've discussed in the past that if you think about the ice cavern and the giant snow wolf, it's not that. It's a white wolf house. It's bigger than normal wolf house, but it's not like super crazy. It's still a mini boss. But you look at where the water temple is, and how it's this big tree above the water temple with a giant slash from like a wolf or a werewolf or a wolf house of some kind, and there's zero explanation there. It makes you wonder if they replace the water temple with an ice temple, I mean, rather, if they replaced the ice temple with a water temple. So initially there was supposed to be an ice temple where the water temple was, and with the ice cavern, which is kind of the remnants of what would have been an ice temple, they had a boss that was a Wolfos, a white Wolfos, and there's this slash of a Wolfos like slash on the tree where that would have been. Like, my brain's thinking, oh, like, that's very cool. Now the thing is, this Ocarina of Time remake is not going to replace the water temple. Like, they might rework the water temple, maybe they make it a new water temple. Like, that would be crazy. But they're not going to turn the water temple into an ice temple, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think. Like, that would be really crazy. It's just interesting to think about, but could there still be an ice temple added elsewhere? Could they expand the ice cavern more so? Could there be other areas? I think that's certainly possible. I also like the idea of thinking, like, if there's a... I'm not thinking about Tears of the Kingdom, because, like, there's the Wind Temple, and the Wind Temple is above, you know, the Hebra region where it's super snowy, you know? And then that gets me thinking, could they make, like, a Wind Temple that has, like, that ice element and still have an ice cavern? You know, that's something they could do, which would be so cool if they did that. I'm not expecting it, just for the record. But then if they did that, do they then kind of expand into a Hebra region? Like, do they add that there? Because, like, now with modern Zelda, we understand there's a Hebra region, but if we're going back to Ocarina of Time, will they depict that Hebra region in any way? Like, realistically, I don't think we should be expecting they're going to literally add a Hebra region for us to explore with, like, a Wind Temple. As cool as that would be. Like, sure, that's, like, stretch goal. Let's go for that. But realistically, that's not going to happen, I think. I don't know. I don't want to rule it out entirely, but it just seems unlikely to me, you know? My hope is that they just kind of have, like, in the background, you can see some snowy mountains. And so at least you can kind of envision that, hey, there is something there, it's just not playable. Like, it's just, like, you know, for lore reasons, basically. Either way, if there's one thing in terms of, like, change temple stuff that I'm totally on board with, it's the idea that they have to expand the light temple. Like, the light temple is mentioned in Ocarina of Time as, but there's nothing about it. Like, they should literally make it a dungeon. When you go to become an adult and you get the light medallion, there should be a dungeon for that. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Totally got to happen. Mark the Complete VG asks me, I imagine the voice talking is the Deku Tree Sprout in the distant future telling Link's Ocarina of Time story, and it'll pan out to him telling a room full of Koroks. So, what's interesting about your idea here is that the Deku Sprout is not the normal Deku Tree. And what I find fascinating about that is that it's a good idea, because the initial introduction is narrated by the Deku Tree that we see in the beginning of the game. But the Deku Sprout is a new Deku Tree. And so that Deku Sprout could actually be someone who could narrate from far into the future. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. I haven't thought about this. Like, this makes a lot of sense, because we know the Deku Sprout's gonna be around for generations. So that Deku Sprout could be the narrator. Actually, doesn't sound like the Deku Tree. Like, you know, like that's something else to point out. Like, the narrator doesn't sound like a tree. You know, I think that should be pointed out. Like, the narrator does not sound like a tree. The narrator sounds like a man. But, you know, if we're talking about voice acting here, obviously it's going to be voice acted by a person. So how much work would they put into having it sound like some kind of person or some kind of tree? There's debate to be had there. But I still think it's a really good idea and should absolutely be considered. Yeah, Legend of Lex. I think there's gonna be, I think there's gonna be at least one new one. That I think they're gonna say with the Light Temple, and if they also kind of reimagine the old ones, and so they all feel fresh and new, to me, that I think that's kind of like the realistic best case scenario. But you know, I'm open to being wrong and there being more. I just if I feel like that's kind of like that's what I think is going to happen if they're going like the super ambitious route. Snick Snack, are you going to PAX West? Wonder if the Ocarina of Time remake will be there. Yes, I am going to PAX West. I have pretty much everything booked already for that. Almost everything set up for that. So I'm going to PAX West. Um, I hope Ocarina of Time remake is there. I don't know if it will. Um, for me, it's just I'm going because I think it's gonna be a good time. I think at the very least, I'm gonna be able to play Switch Sports Resort there. I guess Fire Emblem like a week before it comes out. Like yeah, I'm gonna be happy to do that. I will cover it. I'm just kind of like the game's about to come out, so it doesn't feel as special to play that one. But I think I'll have an opportunity to play at least those two games at PAX West. The Dustbloods is like an online-based game, so something tells me that's probably not going to be there now. The more I think about it, I hope somehow I'm wrong about that. I imagine there'll be some Switch 2 ports to play as well. So, if I can cover those things, I will. But I'm just excited for that weekend. I think it's going to be a good time. I'm going to see people. I'm going to hang out with people. There's going to be a lot of cool tech there and games there. And if somehow Ocarina of Time is there, I will definitely cover that too. I think Nintendo should have it in as playable for people relatively soon, and that's a place where a lot of people are gonna be able to play it and talk about it, which is kind of another point to consider. Maybe Nintendo should start talking about Ocarina of Time remake sooner, like in August, so they can have playable builds for this game in different events throughout September and such. Matt McDonald Media 2655. What about them using Reborn with Zelda Skyward Sword HD? They kept using Reborn with that as well. Thoughts, Andre? Did they keep doing it, or did they just do it on a Twitter post? Because I don't remember them. Like, listen, let's take a look. Go to Skyward Sword HD, Nintendo.com, right? If it's in the summary, then that changes things, but I don't think it is. But let's double check. Maybe I'm off. I'm looking through. Let's see. Okay, so I'll screen share. It's just not there, basically. Right. So I control left this, right? There's no Reborn here at all. But we go to Ocarina of Time. There it is. Reborn. Right? This is like the official site for the game. I know what you're referring to. There's a single tweet. That mentioned the game being reborn. That's like a random person that's running social media that's on the social media team that did that. What I'm talking about is literally the Nintendo Direct announcers calling it reborn. It's on the website. It's in their marketing slogans, Reborn Across Time, and their social media posts. It's not like one random mention as like flavor text for a single tweet, which is what happened with Skyward Sword, to my understanding. I just double checked the website to be sure, right? Or to be more sure. The Ocarina of Time thing, the Reborn slogan is vast. It's not the same thing. It's not just using one adjective as to hype something up for a single tweet versus a grand, like, consistent marketing approach for the game. It's two very different things. So, no, I strongly disagree with the idea that one tweet that mentioned Skyward Sword being reborn as an approximation for what Nintendo's doing with all this reborn wording and messaging for Ocarina of Time is completely different. But yeah, I'm aware of what you're referring to. Let's see, where was I? Mark the complete VG. I also think the fast travel mechanic will be you call Kapoor Gabor to your location, and you'll grab his talon and he'll fly wherever you want in real time, a la Thwomp's Fortress. That's a really good idea. I like that. I've been struggling to kind of think how they should handle time traveling. A Kapoor Gabor song would be cool. Where I kind of struggle with this, though, is that the the songs that you learn for the different dungeons, do they replace them, or do they no longer exist? Do they just change them into like themes that you hear as you're about to enter the dungeon? Because then there's a different song for the actual dungeon, right? And then there's stuff they have playing leading up to the dungeon too. So like, what do they change there? What decisions are made? I don't want those songs to be lost. I want them to be expanded upon. And then can we like playing them is also part of the fun too. So if we're gonna create a different fast traveling system with Kapoor Gabor, which I'm all for, that makes so much sense. That would be really cool. And also, fast traveling should be made available earlier on in the game. Um, you know, and especially if they're going to expand upon the world a bit more, that makes sense. But then, how do you handle the song stuff? My idea has been that, well, my idea might be worse. I think my idea has been is that when you learn the songs, it gives you access to a region. You can fast travel to certain points in that region, not just a single one. You kind of pick. The problem with that is then you still don't unlock fast traveling for areas until you get that song, which may be frustrating for people. So the Kapoor Gabor thing makes a lot of sense, but of course, I think most people agree that you shouldn't be able to fast travel somewhere until you've traversed there at least once, right? Maybe they could change things where you learn some of the songs earlier on, so you don't have to wait till you're an adult. Which then would change the Sheik interactions, but they could still come up with cool reasons to still interact with Sheik throughout your adult adventure, which still may have to do with some of the learning songs of some of the dungeons, but maybe not all of them. Like, you do go to the Forest Temple, for example, when you're a kid. Maybe you could learn the song there. The problem with that is you also learn Saria's song around that time, so it doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm just putting too much stock into the need of having to fast travel early on. Or maybe they just do phase out the songs and they just find a place that's really cool where we can use the songs later on. Or maybe we learn the songs, but they no longer have the role of being fast travel songs, but they do something else for you. That would be neat. Captain Doge is a neat way to contextualize the remake as a narration from a future time. Legends change over time as they are passed down. This remake will perhaps change some aspects of the original game. I am in such big agreement with you here. Like, it's kind of like, if you think about, because it is called The Legend of Zelda, right? These are all legends, is kind of like the idea. So when you're playing a game, you're experiencing a telling of that legend. And so if we're hearing a different telling of that legend from a different time, as legends are passed on throughout time, there are subtle changes. And so if this is kind of like just another telling of Ocarina of Time, but because it's a retelling, just by considering the nature of how legends work, it can be told a bit differently. So the way things go won't be exactly the same. And that's really interesting to me. Captain Doge, is a Dustbuzz network test free, or do you have to pre-order or something? So you just need a Nintendo account and the Nintendo Switch Online service, and the Switch too. Like, you have those things. You don't have to pay or pre-order for the Dustbloods. However, the application period's already up, so that window has passed to get into it. The way it's described in the site, which they changed after the fact, it's kind of like, it seems like a first come first serve. I signed up for it within the first few hours, so hopefully I get into it, but we'll see. Also, apparently we're not allowed to talk about it or share footage of it, which is annoying. Well, I think they said we're not allowed to share footage of the network test, but I'm still gonna talk about it. We'll see. Mark that complete VG expands on the whole fast travel thing. You could still use the songs to warp to temples, but Kapor Gabor would be useful for overworld stuff like hard to get hard pieces, etc. Yeah, I like the idea of like like writing with him and them turning into a mini game that would just kind of ruin the ability to fast travel. Of course, if you can skip it, but maybe use it, and it can still be played as a mini game, and maybe use it as an opportunity to collect rupees, or maybe there are some heart pieces that can be acquired as a flying mini game through the world. But if you just wanted to like fast travel quickly, you can. That would be neat, and it would still be faster to for travel with the owl than not. But I don't know. That's just a fun idea. Emperor Darth OP, I thought that the Sky Temple would be the old ruins of Skyloft from Skyward Sword, while the Ground Temple is a special grotto you access in Hyrule Field. Hmm. That's super interesting. I like the lore considerations there, for sure. RNL. Just like Star Fox, we'll get movie-like cutscenes. You know, it's interesting. I was playing Halo with a friend last night, Campaign Evolved. It's kind of glitchy, which is unfortunate. But I did notice I need to go back to the original game, but I kind of felt like they had added more to the cutscenes. Maybe I'm wrong. That's how I felt. Um, and so you know, kind of gave me the Star Fox treatment vibes. So I'm very curious on what Nintendo will do with the Ocarina of Time remake thing. It feels like now the standard has to at least be that they where visually everything is made to look like a modern game, and there is some new story stuff with cutscenes at least on top of like having really good cutscenes for the already established stuff too. That seems to be kind of like the bare minimum now because of what Nintendo did with Star Fox. Um, Yoster Zero. What would be your top pick next Zelda remake after Ocarina of Time? Majora's Mask. But you know what? Let's put a poll there. We're gonna wrap up things soon. Um, well, not super. Oh, we'll see. Um, what would be my top? So what Zelda do you think Nintendo will remake next? Majora's Mask. The thing is, I say Majora's Mask. I think Majora's Mask would be the first 3D Zelda remake, but there's also like 2D Zelda, right? And I think they will probably still continue to do that stuff too. So, um, yeah, I gotta consider that as well. Hmm. Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess. Maybe you should just. I think the question becomes. Hmm. Well, it's a different kind of question if I include 2D Zelda stuff. Yeah, I'm just gonna make it broad Zelda, and I'm putting 4 options, but let's see. Hmm. What's the last one I want to put? Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Zelda 1. And if it's not, if your choice is not here in the poll, feel free to include another in the chat. Yeah. Emperor Darth OP. Some things the Reborn can't get wrong is that they have to make a poorer Gabora's text dialogues and keep King Zora's moving aside on his throne 3 times as slow as they was in the OG game. So, yeah, like Kapor Gabor would mess with you, like with the yes no thing, and I was annoyed by King Zora's long butt sitting moving animation. Yeah. RNL, so with Majora's Mask 100%. Hmm. Well, seems like most people agree. Majora's Mask. Seems like it's a landslide. Although there's some that are picking Oracle Invasions and Seasons. Maki Mario. Just make the combat better and we're good. I hope they make the combat better. That'd be great. That'd be really good. Okay. I'm gonna fetch Ruby, because I know people want Ruby, and she hasn't come yet. So give me one moment while I fetch her, and you guys do the poll. How do I... I wanted to like put like something to say I'll be back. Like I'm gonna be back in like 10 seconds, so it doesn't matter. This is what I'll do. What happens when I do this? Oh, that. I'll be back in like super quick. Maybe. I'm back. I know people want to see Ruby, so here she is. Ruby, you want to go to PAX? Want to play Ocarina of Time? Hmm? You can go now. All right, where were we? Yeah, if you check the chat, you should be able to see the poll. Michael's Gutman. Is there any updates on Ocarina of Time? Well, specifically with Ocarina of Time, well, I mentioned earlier, it's more so Zelda 40th anniversary stuff than Ocarina of Time itself. Well, hold on. There's one thing. There's a pretty big update for specifically Ocarina of Time, and that, well, there's two. uh, um, One of them is that people think the game's coming out November 12th because of the Amiibo leak. There's a Kirby Amiibos coming out November 12th, and there's a high correlation with Amiibos coming out and major games coming out, and that does kind of make a lot of sense. So that's one of them. I don't think that guarantees Ocarina of Time is coming out November 12th. I still think it could come out the 19th, or like that November 5th. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of those 3 Thursdays, the first 3 Thursdays of November. The other thing is that the game has been officially rated E10 plus, and it's a little interesting. The brief description we have is animated blood fantasy violence, which is the same thing as the Ocarina of Time 3DS version, except the 3DS version also had suggestive themes. So it's curious that that's the only things that are listed right now. It doesn't really tell us much, to be honest. Like, it does and it doesn't. So, like, it's... There's a change, right? It's when you think about the visual style in conjunction with the rating and the... Because, like, okay, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom don't have animated blood mentioned, but this does. So they're not getting rid of blood, which is cool. However, we then have to wonder, are they going to use red blood, like with the very original release, or like afterwards they actually changed the blood to green very quickly because there were other versions of Ocarina of Time that came out after the initial like cartridge release. Are they going to change that? Because like Ganondorf's blood became green instead of red. That we're not sure about, right? Are they going to dull the blood down like they did in Ocarina of Time 3D or not? We're not sure. Um, and like the omission of suggestive themes, what does that mean? Let me double check. Maybe am I misremembering? Ocarina of Time 3D ESRB. No, yeah. So Ocarina of Time 3D also had suggestive themes. That has been omitted, and so that has us wondering how are the suggestive thing or have the suggestive things been eliminated, right? And so there's a lot of potential suggestive things. Like, what do you mean? What do they mean by suggestive themes? Do they mean the Great Fairies, which were almost naked? Or do they mean like that Poe person who suggested that Link should use his body to make money, like like sell himself for, yeah. I'm suggesting a theme here, right? Like that, like stuff like that. Are they gonna get rid of things like that, right? Actually, this is funny. Check this out. Just to speak to my point. Um, So this is Ocarina of Time 3DS, right? Here, just read this part. As the game progresses, Link encounters a few female characters that are depicted from low camera angles and are dressed in outfits that display modern amounts of cleavage. So, like, this right here probably is what they were getting at with suggestive themes. And this is where I think there's a substantial change here, because when they get rid of it's not listed as, there's no suggestive theme here. There's no longer a suggestive theme, I guess, is the implication. That doesn't mean they're getting rid of the Great Fairies, and it doesn't mean their redesigns are going to be like bad. I just think we have to consider the time. So Ocarina of Time came out in 1998 for the Nintendo 64. The 3DS version, the system's like not even that much more powerful, and like they did do some things, they did make some changes, but ultimately like the Great Fairy design was basically the same. And just because these are like low textured, low poly, low resolution models, right? So even though they were depicting something that's clearly like, if it was depicted realistically, would probably not be fitting for an E10 rating or an everyone rating, um, because of the limitations of the hardware, didn't make much of a difference. It was just a suggestive theme. If they were to do that exact design but in 4K detailed clearly, that kind of look might not work for an E10 rating. And so we've already seen that Link has been redesigned, his house has been redesigned, the Deku Tree has been redesigned. The Great Fairies are probably being redesigned as well, and are not going to be depicted as basically nude with just some vines covering them. Like, that's not what they're going to do, most likely. I'm not saying they're not going to still look kind of like the Great Fairies, where they have the long, flowy hair, and they don't have, like, that kind of, like, attractive form, but maybe it'll need to be done a little bit more modestly, where there might be a little bit more clothing, is what I'm getting at. So, there's implications like that, I would say. So it's interesting. But yeah, those are maybe like some of the recent Ocarina of Time updates if you missed some of the last videos. Yeah. Let's see. Legend of Lex, I like Phantom Hourglass. I don't know if they'll remake it though. I think they should at least remaster Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks at some point. Like a good remaster. Not like a simple one, like a good one. Legend of Lex. If we look at the Great Fairies in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they managed to still make them voluptuous without making it seem as skimpy as it was in Ocarina of Time. So I think it's going to be like that. I don't want their designs to be like the Breath of the Wild and Tears ones, but to your point, like they can still make them voluptuous, but kind of similar to the Great Fairies designs from Ocarina of Time, with still wearing clothes, right? Like not no clothes with vines. Like, yeah. Hamstar, would they go for a Hyrule style for the Great Fairies? Let me look that up. I think yeah, I'm just gonna look it up and pull up the imagery for Great Fairy, um, Hyrule Warriors. I think I know what you're talking about. I think that's maybe what is the right direction for them. Yeah, I think this is probably it, to be honest. Like this is probably the direction they should go. It would still be like, I'm trying to find like a good image. Sure, this one works. Okay. Like, I think if it went for this, I don't think people would be that upset about it. Like, so clearly this is inspired by the Ocarina of Time designs, but she's not naked. She's wearing clothes, right? And there's still vines, and she's still wearing clothes, and she's still being depicted as a voluptuous, beautiful woman, right? Like, so you can still do both. And I think a design like this wouldn't be, the game can still be E10 with designs like this, but the way the designs are in Ocarina of Time, if that's in 4K, that is not going to work. Not for an E10 rating. So yeah, that's what I would expect. Something like that is definitely would make sense to me. So, where's the chat? Hamstar, I just want to point out that's I think that's a good suggestion there. That's what I think they something like that I think is what they should go for, and that's what makes the most sense. And I think that's a suggestion is what I'm really getting at. Yeah, there's a lot of Halo remake discourse, right? I guess it's negative, unfortunately. I enjoyed what I was playing. I'm kind of confused why the ground textures were all like in the first main level, like just lines. Like it was weird. Emperor Darth OP. If they do make remakes of the Oracle of games, I would want that planned third Oracle game so as to complete the triad of power and seasoned wisdom and ages and courage in a third one. So here's something. Like I feel like as much as I would like to see like a totally new 2D Zelda again, I feel that I don't know. I think we're getting a new 2D Zelda in 2027. I just don't know if it's going to be a remake, a brand new title, or maybe something in between. And what you're talking about feels like kind of like a little bit of an in-between where we do have the Oracle of Ages and Season 3 made, but there's that third game as well. So maybe it's like it's remakes, but with substantial new content in a third game that's new. That would be cool. That I'm for. That's what I hope we see. And maybe that's what it is. Yeah. There's certainly been rumors. So. Okay. Where are we at? How long have we been going for? Alright, I'm going to go for maybe another 10 minutes. So if you guys have any final questions or points you want me to cover or talk about, put them in now. I'm going to wrap up the stream. Let's see. Fox and Cloud. I wonder what was the criteria differences for the rating between then and now. That is something else to consider, right? Like I think how we perceive things in 2026 versus 1998 versus 2011 have changed each time, right? Like how sensitive or perceptive we are for different topics and different things. You know, our culture shifts and adjusts over time, right? And so I think there is room to consider where some things might be looked upon a little bit differently. For sure. I don't know if things have changed so much where the ratings would be significantly different, but you know, maybe there are some cases where a rating that would have been a teen could be E10 or vice versa, or E could be E10 and vice versa. Like I don't think like things have shifted so much where rating should be drastically different, but there may be the occasional game where it's rated slightly different. Um, but it's interesting to consider. I feel like, though, you know, I think I would love it if Ocarina of Time Remake was rated teen. It's not. It's E10. I don't think E10. I think it'd still be E10 and kind of depict the things we want to depict. But we'll see. Captain Doge. Metroid's 40th anniversary is this Thursday, but I'm not expecting anything. I'm hoping for some sort of surprise Metroid announcement in August or September. I'm hoping for it. I think there's something Metroid coming soon, but that soon could be next year soon and not like this year soon. We'll see. I do think it's probably we probably shouldn't get our hopes super up for a 40th anniversary, but you know, like yeah, the Nintendo just doesn't really celebrate the anniversaries in big ways outside of Mario and Zelda and Pokemon, which is handled by Pokemon Company. Let's see here. Have I seen that? That name is bad. Have I seen the movie Swordfish? I haven't, but it looks like a good movie to watch. Andres Restart at me. That's me. I don't know. My brain is just falling apart. Emperor Darth OP at me. If there is things I want to see with the bosses in Ocarina of Time Reborn, is that I want Volvagia to be much bigger, like Fenros from Metroid Prime 4. I want a Battle of Blades with Ganondorf. Yeah, they gotta increase the scale. Volvagia is too small to be like epic anymore. Like Volvagia almost looks like seems like a mini boss. Same thing with Morpha. Like it's not like they gotta increase the scale for these things. There were hard limitations at the time, but hey, Goma was cool. But you know what? I think they make Goma a little bit bigger too. You know what? While we're at it, King Dodongo, giant, make him gianter, make him way bigger, make him Godzilla. Let's do it. Give us like some Shadow of the Colossus like moments. I'm all for that. Let's do it. In fact, I wanna make a video revisiting the Ocarina of Time Lego set because the way it's depicted, especially now with the Ocarina of Time remake having been confirmed, I do kind of wonder if there is a suggestion of some gameplay changes there because we do see like the way they position Link flying in the air. You know, like if there's something like that, what if that does speak to this idea of like a little bit more movement in the air, jumping and climbing, and perhaps even climbing onto boss fights, somewhat like Shadow of the Colossus. Like, listen, we've seen it for Twilight Princess. There were some moments like that. It would be cool if they were to revisit that and expand on that with some giant epic boss fights in Ocarina of Time. Boomini, how big do you think the map will be? 2 or 3 times size the original? I can't give you a number. I can't give you a number. I will say that, like, I'll show you a map comparison. Map of Ocarina of Time compared to Breath of the Wild. I think there's an image somewhere that compares the sizes. Oh, here we go. Check this out. Apparently, this is kind of like how big the size differences are. I don't know if this is super true, but check this out. This is neat. Okay. So, you see this map right here? This is a map for Breath of the Wild, right? This square right here, I believe, is like, I don't know. Is that supposed to be the Zelda 1 map? I'm not sure. I think it might be, but I don't. I'm not sure. Um, this is the map of Skyrim in comparison to Breath of the Wild. This is a map of Wind Waker, which is actually pretty big, but because it's just all ocean, you know, there's only a little bit of land. Twilight Princess Ocarina of Time. So, Breath of the Wild map, Twilight Princess map, Ocarina of Time map. Ocarina of Time map is a fraction of Twilight Princess's map. Twilight Princess is a fraction of Breath of the Wild's map. Um, I would be ecstatic if they were able to make the map feel comparable to the Twilight Princess map. Um, and I'm not sure they will, but I think I think most people want them to do something like that, or they want to scale things up here. But by doing that, you better also like offer things to do, so it makes sense. Or give us more movement options on top of that, better fast travel options and things to do, like more side quests and different enemies and things, and just like things to collect. If you expand in that way, then we're talking about like a pretty big reimagining. So that's why I think they can scale things up a little bit, so things do kind of make more sense. But I don't want to like be like, yo, they're gonna make it 3 times bigger, you know. But I do think they need to reshape the map a little bit, even if they're not adding a lot of new content, just so like visually it makes sense with modern visuals. Um, so I expect at least a little bit of scaling, but if we're talking 2 to 3 times or like 10, 20, 100 times, like that's probably unrealistic. Um, this scaling it to Breath of the Wild levels is unrealistic, right? Scaling it to Twilight Princess levels, I mean, we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Oh, the chat died. Oh, there it is. Joshua Webb, do you think they'll add a connection to Zelda nodes for the Ocarina of Time remake? I know some people like that. I didn't really give it much of a try, so like I rather they not personally. Like any effort, I rather that effort go into like just putting more stuff in the game itself. I don't want to have to use my phone with it, but we'll see. I can see it making sense though because they could have like a lot of cool stuff for the 40th anniversary and kind of like oh when we came up with the original design for this, like they could have little like points of interest like that. So it's an interesting idea. I just personally I'm not excited about it, but it does make sense. So I I I don't personally want them to do it is what I'm trying to say, but I can if they did it I'd be like, well, that makes sense, and it might actually, as I'm kind of thinking about it, it would be cool to kind of get those little bits of text. I think for me, one of the reasons, and you know what, maybe I'm being unfair here. Maybe the reason I didn't like it that much is because I didn't really feel like playing through Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom again. Um, like it just seemed like too tedious to me. But if I'm going back to Ocarina of Time, which is going to be full fresh to me because what they're doing with this remake and all those changes that's going to bring, then maybe I might be a little bit more willing to try out an app like this. I do kind of feel like that was just kind of like a thing they wanted to sort of play around with, though. So like if I had to bet, I'm gonna guess no, but it does make sense, and I'll admit as I kind of like think it through that I would probably at least give it a try because I'll feel like this Ocarina of Time remake is going to feel a lot more fresh to me than the Switch 2 editions for Breath and Tears. Upper Nimbus, hello. I have been well. Hope you've been well too. Emperor Darth OP. Also, if there's one change I would make to the twin robo fight, it is in the first phase with Koemi and Kotaki. They use the ice arrows on Koemi and the fire arrows on Kotaki. Interesting. We would have to have both by that point. So, um, yeah, but that's another thing. The ice arrows are like not mandatory. They're not like you can play. Most people play through the game without getting the ice arrows. Um, they should fix that. That should be adjusted. I would like for the ice arrows to be relevant. Absolutely. I mean, to that end, I, I don't, or for that matter, I want every item and ability to have purpose and not just like a very niche little purpose once, but like I want it to be the case where every ability and item could have multiple uses throughout the adventure and make sense and be fun. Christopher Spreezy, do you think a direct will be announced tomorrow? Do I think? No. I don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't have an expectation. Like I don't. I'm not like. There's no one's like told me, hey, there's a direct being announced tomorrow. No one's told me that. I'm not acting like there's gonna be a direct announced tomorrow. I just believe there's gonna be a Zelda 40th anniversary presentation within the next couple months. That's what I believe with confidence in some form, probably in a direct. Michael's Gutman. I haven't played the Halo remake yet, but I plan it on sale. People think that it holds your hand too much. Some people don't like some weapon changes. The graphics look nice though. I was playing it on heroic and it was fine. Like challenge fine was fine. Um, the game. I mean, I think it was. I just my only issue is that it was glitching out. Like, why? Why? It's a remake. Like, how do you screw that up on the first level? Well, technically the second level, but the first, I'm like the first real level. I just weird to me. Michael's Gutman. People also say that the new missions are too easy and they change some narrative things, so people aren't a fan of that. Huh. I should watch a review on it. Or no, the best thing I want to see in this remake would be easier ways to get places like the Spirit Temple, Goron Village, and Fire Temple, etc. To get to places. It's like with fast traveling. K Shrek. I want Ocarina of Time remake to feel like an extended cut of the N64 original, bigger and better in every conceivable way. That sounds cool. Emperor Darth OP is something I would want to see in the Happy Mask shop, and Castletown's the mask of Majora's Mask sitting in the back of the wall as a prop. Ooh, a cool reference. Which, there is a history of like Zelda remasters, kind of having hints about future things. So like, I mean, also it's kind of obvious, and like from a lore connection perspective, like if there's something there that kind of sets that up, like a simple thing to your point, like just a mask in the back of the shop or something, that'd be super cool, super cool. Or imagine like there's like a scroll or a book you can read that makes mention of a fierce deity tribe or something. That'd be cool. Um, Metagaming Dojo. Majora's Mask will feel like Tears of the Kingdom at the Ocarina of Time Switch 2. I'm not sure I agree. Um, because the thing about Majora's Mask, it's all new land to explore. Tears of the Kingdom is mostly the same land with things added in. Um, but I mean, I guess maybe you mean like just like the graphics. Like it's gonna have the same graphical style. I agree with that. And UI stuff too. That too. Boomini asked me, is it true that Nintendo's original plan was to have Ocarina of Time be open world? If so, do you think the remake will be open world? I think, like, the idea of loading zones, like when you walk out of Kokiri Forest to Hyrule Field, I think it should be seamless. I think they should. I think there should be a lot more seamless exploration, and so if that means the game is open world, sure. But open world like Breath and Tears where you can do every dungeon out of order, I don't think so. However, there is already some level of freedom to do dungeons in Ocarina of Time, like you do the fire or water temple in either order, and I think it applies to Spirit and Shadow as well too. So like, if they maintain that, I think that's fine. There's some degree of openness there, but I don't. Um, yeah. I don't know. I think in terms of having a seamless world to explore, yes, but I don't. I think this the game is going to be mostly linear with some variation to the structure of how you, in terms of how you choose to go about it, which is how Ocarina of Time worked, the original. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll now. Most of you agree. Majora's Mask. 69% said Majora's Mask would be the next remake. Um, I think honestly, I think it's Oracle of Ages and Seasons. I know I said Majora's Mask earlier. Like I wasn't thinking, but when I said that, I wasn't thinking about 3D Zelda. Um, I don't know. Majora's Mask is a given to me. Like Majora's Mask is happening now because we got the Ocarina of Time remake. Oracle of Ages and the Seasons though is not a given, but like I think if we're there's a good chance we see a 2D Zelda something first, and I think that for Oracle of some sort of Oracle of Ages and Seasons adaptation makes sense. Um, but I do think we're gonna get my Majora's Mask remake in like 4 to 5 years. Anyway, with that, I will now end the stream. Thank you everyone for coming by. It was a good time. I enjoyed the conversation. And here's hoping for an interesting week. But I'll see you all really soon. Take care.